welcome to a new episode of the Dive Into Reiki podcast. I've been catching up with some past interviewees recently, and today I am with Frans Stiene. Most of you know he's my mentor and friend, so I'm very excited to be chatting with him tonight. Hi, Frans.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, I'm so excited to see Nathalie. Actually, we spent some days together here in Lancaster.
In Chimpinant. Beautiful, beautiful experience. And I will be posting on the podcast notes past interviews with Frans, so you can catch up with his origin story, and then I catch up with it last year. But from last year to now, you actually went to Japan to do training with your priest, and it was quite intense. So spill the tea.
Yeah, it's hard actually to talk about it, Nathalie, because it's these kind of experiences are very personal in a way, and it's also very intense. So my teacher, Takeda Ajari, he's a priest, and his teacher was Sakai Dai Ajari, one of the famous marathon monks in Japan. And so this tradition is so, they're funny, but at the same time, they really focus on what they do. Like they're like a train, like going zoop, like this. And so when you spend 10 days with them you wake up at 4 a.m. till midnight, and then for 10 days, so it's not that you sit still. It's like full on practice. But at the same time, it's just really, I think sometimes I need this, for myself. It's not actually that I go, yay, I go there and,
have fun.
And have fun. Yeah. It's actually super challenging.
It's funny. We had a sensei from Japan come, and we had to work 3 days like nonstop with him.
Yeah.
And he was laughing all the time, and he says, we're going to have fun, but we're going to work hard. For them, fun and working hard is together. And they literally laugh at you when you fail every time. But they're very kind that way. They make like failing and trying like nice because they laugh.
Yeah, this is what I see in my teacher. I've been doing training with him since 2012. And it's just so different than we do it, right? They are also very, they're very kind, and yet they put you into your place. But sometimes we might say, oh, this is not so kind, it's challenging. But actually they do it out of kindness. And I think it's actually absolutely necessary, because I'm a teacher, so I teach. So I put myself out there on a platform to teach, and then they go, okay, you're teaching about kindness and love and openness. Let me check how kind you actually are, or how grounded and stable you are. And they're going to press buttons. And then we might say, oh, that's actually not really kind. But I think it's actually super kind, because they show you where you're lacking. They show you your weak spots. They show you where you need to improve. So I see this, unfortunately, in a lot of modern teachers, and don't get me wrong, they talk about kindness and compassion, and you say one thing and they get upset, they get angry, or they think you're the competition. So for me, this is really an interesting conundrum in a way, where it doesn't make sense. You preach one thing, and then when someone says something, then you get upset, and you stay upset for a while, and don't go teaching then. It may, in that kind of way, particularly from the Japanese perspective, they're very strict. And therefore, I'm really glad that he actually pushes my buttons.
But that's what I do, because also, like, if you do every day your life and you're good at what you do, like you're a good Reiki teacher, you're a decent human being, they are like, you work the work, whatever, but there's those buttons you are not even aware that unless you go to this very intense training, like then you're aware, like, oh, I actually still need to sit and work on that, right?
Oh, absolutely. And this is, I think they're so skillful at it as well. As you say, they do it in a way with some sense of humor, with and yet at the same time very strict. This is wrong again. This is wrong again. This is wrong again. And and they push you. They say, oh, you're not focused. You're not sitting up straight. You're not doing the breathing correctly. Where's your mind now? What are you doing? Why are you not focused, right? And these kind of things. we teach meditation and maybe a person drifts off, and then maybe one day we say, oh, you're not focused, and then they might get really upset at you.
Or we excuse ourselves. Well, I'm tired. I was working. What do you expect, right?
Yeah.
And for them, it's no excuses.
There is no excuse. They are like that. What is that Karate Kid? Wax on,
Mr.
wax
Miyagi.
on. Yeah, they're a bit like this. But I must say to Nathalie, I've been seeing him now since 2012, and I wouldn't be where I'm now if it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
He really pushes me to look at myself, to look at my practice, to be dedicated. I was just saying today in class as well, I said, look, if I go there, like I was there in last November, and then if I come back this year and I say, actually, I didn't practice that much, I don't know this, let me read it instead of actually do it out of my head, not even out of your head, but from your being. He says, well, there's the door. Off you go, because it means you've not been practicing. You've been slack. So they actually then point out your slackness. And what is also okay. The beauty is, like at one point, we were in the training, and I think it was day 5, and it was early morning 4, and then I asked him, are you okay? Because he looked a little bit sad, in a way, not sad, but he said, oh man, this is really intense. So also for them, it's intense.
Yeah, they're investing in you.
They're investing in you. I mean, like, he hasn't had really anybody staying at his little temple for a long time. So then suddenly this is a crazy Dutch guy who bounces up and down the steps and just go like, okay. And so for them also it's challenging. And then in that tradition, like he wants to look after you. So he makes breakfast, lunch and dinner. Also not used to. The language is tricky. So that's also tiring.
Yeah.
And for me also, I mean, I don't speak Japanese and he speaks English, but sometimes also not so good. So then he's speaking in Japanese, and I really need to, it's very interesting. I mean, I found this is just, I don't even know how it works. This is the beauty of it. And he speaks in Japanese, and then I understand what is happening. So the way he speaks and the way I perceive it, then I go like, okay, actually I know what he's talking about. It's such
a connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, those teachers are just so interconnected, so in that space. And we cannot just also go to those people. We cannot say, oh, can I do a training with you? You have to be invited, or you have to be recommended. And the person who recommends you needs to know you for about 10 years so that they know that you're actually a dedicated practitioner, because else it's a waste of their time.
And I think that is very important, right? So we train with my sensei who came, the one who said work hard, and Oshita sensei is amazing, but literally, like, you have the clarity, like, I don't have a talent, I love martial arts, but it will be a waste of his time. Sometimes as student, we are so inner student that we forget teachers are actually investing their love, their time, their passion in us.
Yeah.
And they actually they learn, they become better teachers with some of us. But if we don't respect that by practicing, it's dishonoring all that investment as well. Sometimes we're so self-centered about us as students and our own issues, we forget that.
I mean, that's a really interesting point. I mean, like, I travel around the world and, teaching, and some people say, oh, that's a great job, you're traveling around the world. I mean, it can be tiring, you get... Now I'm teaching 4 days full on, then you go to the next city, you do another 4 days, you go to the next city, you do another 4 days, you do another city, you go next 4 days. Then besides that, we party in the evening.
We did get a little bit of dancing.
A little bit of dancing.
2 hours.
It's not, of course that sounds like fun, but you're really at the same time, I feel this now, like this is almost the end of my trip, and I feel this shift happening left, right, and center. So I also have to work with that within myself. And so therefore, exactly what you say, in all of these traditions, if you want to honor the teacher, practice. Because if you don't practice, you actually not honor the teachings, and you're not honoring the teacher. And, I see this a lot in a way. And this is not a wrong thing, but And then people come and they don't know, oh, yeah, I've been practicing, and they don't know the rituals, or they don't know the mantras, or they don't know anything. And you're like, really?
Or in Japan, they will be like kicked.
I mean,
like, with a stick.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, like, well, actually, if I would do this to my teacher, he said, don't come back.
Yes.
You know, and it's actually as clear as that. I'm investing my time in you. And if you don't want to run with it, then why would I invest my time in you? Just to tell you that I've trained with someone, or I've got now a special Reiki or a special symbol. Oh, bollocks.
Yeah.
Because ultimately it's really in your own core, you know. And this is, I mean, we start at, you wake up at 4, then 4:45, 5 o'clock, you start practice. And then he goes for like 3 hours, like 3-4 hours. And it's not like a gentle practice, right? They go like full on focus for 3-4 hours. It's like I describe it as a freight train. You know, they don't stop. PP, no stopping. You keep going. You focus. Keep focus, Frans. Keep doing it. And so, I mean, like 3-4 hours. And then if I look at how I compare it with how we teach in modern, let's have a little break. Can we have a little drink?
I was desperate for a break today. I was the first one, like, when is it breaking? Where is lunch? Yeah.
Sometimes I get carried away too. I'm like, whoa, this is good.
But I think also that's why I think for me, when I train martial arts, I train with a very different mindset.
Yeah.
I bring it to my Reiki practice, but when I teach, I actually am also like aware we're in a different culture.
Yeah.
And then I don't feel like, here is my teachings, you use them or don't use them, that's on you. Like, because I learn a lot from teaching, so I'm happy with that. But that's something that, for example, in my dojo practice, I will never, like, that's not the case there. Like, people end up leaving. Or, for example, the students who don't pay attention, don't practice, they get very little instruction. Yeah.
I mean, of course, I teach very different than my teacher, because I don't think I can teach like this.
But also there are cultural differences, and that's
okay. That is okay too.
Yeah.
Sometimes sometimes I push a little bit people, because I think it's necessary, particularly if they are teachers or practitioners or they authors, and then I say, okay, hang on, you're right about kindness, enlightenment, God knows what, then let's see how far we can take this, you know. And then sometimes they do get upset, and they're like, you might need to review how you're practicing, how you're teaching, and then they might also get upset. And sometimes I do it, but not all the time. And I also see it here. For me, here's the teaching. You do it at whatever you want. But of course, if you keep struggling with your life, then it's very clearly that
something is not happening.
Something is not happening, you know. And I use this a lot as, if you go to a doctor and you get a prescription, then take 2 tablets in the morning, 1 tablet in the afternoon, and 2 tablets in the evening, for example. You're going to follow that. And if you don't do it, then maybe you don't get better, right? Whatever. So you follow that recipe, what the doctor has given you. But in yoga, tai chi, qigong, the system of Reiki, the teacher gives you some recipe, and then you go like, well, not today. And then 10 months later, you go like, I still have this issue. Why is this? I've been practicing. Oh, really? Have you been following the recipe? No, not really. And then that is up to them, right?
Yeah.
I cannot take this on board, because it's up to the practitioner or student. So, for example, there is a wonderful practice what I teach quite often. You know, the one with your feet against the wall for grounding. And then sometimes I say to people, okay, do this. Do it 3 in the morning, afternoon, evening for 1 month. And then they kind of see them again like 10 days later. So, oh, this is really good. It really works. I've practiced it 5 times. And I go like, what? If it really works, keep practicing. But if I would be a doctor and would have prescribed some medicine, they would have been taking it.
I forget the medicine too, but
Oh, okay.
but actually that was one of the biggest takeaways. So every time people say like, oh my God, 7 Shinpin, 7 training. Mm-hmm. For me, you're my Japan in a way. Like, I don't get to practice 3 days in a row for like many hours in my regular life. So this is for me like my shugyo, my intense practice. But every time I come beyond the experience of Reiju and attunements and all of that, that helps me get deeper in a way that, is hard to share. But I think the one thing I took this time is like follow the recipe and not only practice it, but also practice it the way it's meant to be practiced, right? Because sometimes we start like, oh, it's okay if I do Joshin with my head falling on my belly. Well, actually...
You're asleep.
So, and that for me was like, well, I need to repeat that more to my students. Like, because I teach the thing, but sometimes I'm a little too flexible. It's like, it's okay if you're like falling asleep on hands-on healing. Well, actually it's not. Like, yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. For example, if we look at hands-on healing, and don't get me wrong, I do this, it's nice. Right? When I wake up early in the morning, say this morning I woke up at 5, I do some hands-on healing on myself. And
After sending pictures on WhatsApp.
After sending pictures on WhatsApp. Not from the bedroom, but just from what we were taking the day before. And then I fall asleep, so that's fine. But actually, I'm sleeping, right? We have to be brutally honest. And when we're sleeping, our mind goes all over the place. And if your mind is all over the place, in a dream world, you have all sorts of crazy dreams, then your energy is also, you're not focused. So traditionally, hands-on healing was done seated, you're wide awake, you're very focused, you're very clear. And then, of course, you get a very, very different result. Yeah. So I always compare it with when you cook and you follow a recipe. If you don't follow the recipe, the cake might even not be edible, right?
Yeah.
And this I see in lots of spiritual traditions these days, no matter if you look yoga, tai chi, qigong, etc. We don't follow the recipe. We are actually a little bit arrogant, let's face it.
Creative. I call it creative.
Okay, creative. My teacher just calls me, you're fucking arrogant. Excuse my language. But it's true. Frans, follow the recipe. Stay with what I'm teaching you. You don't change. Don't fear of it. And why are they like this? I mean, I think this is a really interesting point. Because, they are being trained in a very traditional way. Then because they follow the recipe, they have a very direct experience. So when they have this very direct experience of no anger, no worry, being grateful, being true to your angel being and being compassionate, they know whatever they've been given works, right? So they don't want to change it because they know it works. So when they're teachers, they say, this is how it is. This is how it works. If you don't do it in the right way, it doesn't work. And so, unfortunately, we are very creative. We go like, oh, but let me add this in and let me just fall asleep a little bit, or let's not do it focus. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, And unfortunately, then we don't see the right results. And this is why, again, my teacher, I go there and he said, Frans, you're teaching about compassion and kindness. Let me check if this is true. And so he pushes these buttons. What is great, and this is another important thing, he pushes these buttons because he can see these buttons. If there's no buttons,
then he will
nothing
say,
to push.
Let's go to the onsen.
Let's go to the onsen.
Yeah.
Nothing to push, right? So you are being pushed because the buttons exist there. If you have worked so much on yourself and there are no buttons anymore, no problem. So actually we should be really kind of people in our daily life, in the world, who actually pushes our buttons. Because then we know, oh shit, I do have a button here. If there was no button, there was nothing to push. So it's not the other person who does it. They actually make you aware of your own buttons or of your own things you need to work with.
Yeah.
And I think this is the beautiful in society, with your partner. I mean, like you're in a relationship, but relationships easy. Like you know exactly, your partner knows exactly where to push or not to push.
He doesn't know yet.
Oh, it's fresh.
It's just 2 years and a half in. He's still like, I've hidden my buttons very well. I didn't outgrow my buttons. I hide them better. No, but I think it's interesting. So I do martial arts and Reiki, and I think, again, having those, you have a priest like that trains you, have a Shin Buddhist priest as well. I have you, I keep training. And for example, I just failed my 3rd degree black belt exam for the 2nd time. I'm the only person who always failed from all the testing. On the other hand, I went to Costa Rica to a shoot, and then there was this guy who was getting in the middle when I was giving instruction. He was really mind-splaining, and he was like a guy, And instead of getting upset or flustered like I always get, I was very calm. I looked at him and I said, there is only one person giving instruction. It's me. Can you please don't confuse your talent? And I kept going and I didn't get upset. And it felt like a sharp sword, right? And then I let it go. I wasn't upset. And I realized I did pass my exam, right? So it was a good check, like my practice is working, my combination of, Reiki, martial art, meditation. So what are some checks people can do to know if their practice is actually getting them a little less crazy?
I mean, this is, we talked about a lot today, and that is, I think, within a system of Reiki and ultimately in any kind of system. But if we look at the system of Reiki, we have the precepts: do not anger, do not worry, be grateful, be true to your way and to your being, and show compassion to yourself and others. So after we're practicing, can we say we are getting less angry? That our anger is softening, right? It doesn't have to be completely gone. It's okay, but as long as it's softening, that our worry is softening, right? If we feel due to practice and my worry is increasing, my anger is increasing, then we're not practicing the right way, right? So if I'm feeling more grateful for whatever happens in life, not just the good things, right? Because normally we say, oh, I'm only grateful for the good things. No, also the shit. Or also grateful for the people who push your buttons, right? Because actually that is wonderful. So can we say, therefore, that we are a little bit more grateful than we used to be? That we feel a little bit more true to our way and our being, and that we feel more compassionate to ourselves and others? This, for me, is the benchmark of all spiritual traditions. So, and sometimes really difficult to see for ourselves, because we like fooling ourselves, right?
I do.
So we say these things, oh yeah, I'm really kind, and then we send a fucking angry email to someone. So sometimes difficult. And so therefore we have to be really kind to the people who trigger us, right? Because they actually, us looking into the mirror and reflecting back to us that, okay, I can be a little bit more grounded. I can be a little bit more centered. So someone asked me the other day, how do I know if I'm more grounded? Well, if you're more grounded, automatically we're less worried, right? Because we're more centered. So automatically we feel less anxiety. Automatically there is less anger. So if we still feel I'm getting anxious and worried, then practice more and follow the right recipe.
Yeah.
Right? So again, if I do, for example, a meditation practice and I sit there and I'm doing it in a very distracted way, and then I do this again and again and again, and then after 6 months or 1 year I go like, it's not really helping, well, then you're not practicing it according to the recipe. The recipe says make sure you focus, make sure you're not getting distracted. So then we can look for ourselves. Are we falling asleep during a meditation practice? Are we distracted? How are we practicing? How are we sitting? Etc., etc.
I love that. Yeah, for me, it's also being less reactive. And you and I were talking also about kindness. And today, the whole day is like, sometimes we see kindness as doing. And today I was thinking there is a lot of kindness in not doing. Yeah. In not answering back, in not attacking, not overprotecting someone, right? Like there is also, it's like so much non-doing is about being grounded. Like you don't react as much.
I think also we have this really wrong idea about kindness and compassion. Like, for example, when my teacher presses these buttons,
he's being compassionate.
He is being compassionate, and we think, oh, he's being not compassionate. Actually, he is, because he helps me to face my issues so that I can do something about it. And compassion is not always like, oh, yeah, nay, oh, you're so sad. Sometimes we need a fucking kick in the butt. Excuse my language, but...
Like the sound guy.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. I think also these days we get so caught up in just... Maybe someone calls me Frank and then I get upset. And it's just one letter I get upset about. It's just one letter instead of Frank. And I go like, wow, man, calm down. It's okay. It's just one letter. Sometimes we get upset with 4 letters, right? Or 5 letters, what someone says. And so these are really good examples of looking at ourselves, what is actually happening. And so therefore, as you say, kindness sometimes is also not responding, is not giving into it. And that can also be very kind.
And sometimes it's funny because we can apply this to work, right? So a lot of us have to work. We live in expensive cities. And also you learn Reiki for your own practice. You're not necessarily going to make a living out of it.
Yeah.
But for example, sometimes we have people who don't fit in a work office. And people are like, I don't want to fire that person because I pity them. I want to be compassionate. But actually keeping them in a position where they are struggling and their self-esteem is going and they're destroying the whole team.
Yeah.
It's actually not a compassionate thing to do. So sometimes compassion can be actually, you have a talent, it's not this one.
Yeah.
I'm setting you free to find your talent. So sometimes we have to be careful with our compassion and not.
I mean, it's the same in a relationship. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes the compassionate thing is actually to divorce because maybe your relationship has become so toxic where you like this. Maybe you need, but then when you do this, don't blame the other person. Don't blame yourself. Set each other free and still be kind, right? So even if that happens, it's still kindness, and then treat each other with respect after that, you know, and still be kind. Then it's all okay, yeah, right?
Yes, unless some people not. No, just kidding. That's a Scorpio in me. I'm evil. He's a better person.
I'm a Leo.
He goes to Japan to train with a master for a few days. I'm still.
I always say I'm a Leo. I'm like a little kitten, but don't make me angry because I'll bite your head off.
I never seen you angry. I've known you for like 8 years at least. I've never seen you angry, so I can't imagine it.
Oh, I don't know.
I imagine you very red. But and talking about kindness, how can people be a little bit kinder beyond not talking, but like one kindness that touched your heart lately? Maybe one thing that you witnessed or did that you say like, this is kindness in a way that touched my heart.
Yeah, I mean, for me, actually, we need to bring our practice onto the street. And what a street is, mean not necessarily on the street, but when we go to our work, in our relationship, when we go shopping, etc. And just these small little bits, just smiling at someone, being kind to them. How are you today? Oh, nice shoes. These little nuggets actually are A, for yourself, absolutely beautiful, and B, for the other person. In the beginning, we might need to do it a little bit with effort because maybe we're not used to it. And it doesn't mean we have to talk to everybody. But today we were sitting at outside, and this lady from a bakery comes and with a big bag, and she said, "Oh, my boss wanted me to throw this away. Anybody want some bread? It's freshly baked." I mean, it's as simple as that.
Oh, we're so happy.
Right? They were downstairs eating the brioche already. So.
I kept some brioche for me to take home.
So, I mean, these little things, it doesn't have to be difficult. I mean, today in the class, I think at the end of the class, we were going around. I think one of the things almost everybody said about, oh, I could feel so much love. We were all a group of strangers.
Felt safe.
They felt safe. They could feel so much love, so much kindness, so much support. And it's not necessarily from me. It's that group where in that group we start to feel kind and safe. And if we can bring that into society, wow, something completely different. However, very important, the kindness in yourself. If I don't know where to find it within myself, if I don't know where to find the joy in myself, very difficult also to be kind to other people. So first of all, show compassion and kindness to yourself. Try to set that free, then very easy to help other people.
Yeah, and I think it's very important. Like, for example, sometimes we're kind to other people, but we're literally not taking care of us or being kind to ourselves. We have all this inner dialogue, and then we snap, right? And we actually, like, all the kindness we did to someone, we just destroy because we're, like, so depleted.
Yeah.
So that's super important first with us.
Yeah, I think, and that is a little bit ultimately artificial kindness. That kindness needs to come from our inner luminosity. And if it stays artificial, then you will get tired, you will feel depleted, you feel sad. Also, then when we do this kindness, because it's coming from our own confused mind, often it's done with an attachment. So then if it's not reciprocated, how do you say
Reciprocated.
Reciprocated. Then we get angry. So we're actually giving kindness with strings attached. Oh, I'm really kind to this person, but they didn't reply back, or they didn't say that. That is not why we're kind. You're kind just to be kind. If we do it so that the other person is going to be kind to us, then there is already unbalanced.
And sometimes we need to do nothing. So I work with some people who have a chronic condition, a health condition, and we go to this training, and we spend like maybe 24 people have the chronic condition, and 20 other people were observing to tell their stories, right? And I go there and I talk a lot on the podcast, but not there. I literally observe. But I'm so grateful to be sharing and hearing these stories from these wonderful humans. And then there is this guy who looks very angry all the time, So I'm like, I'm trying to be respectful. And then one day I'm leaving and with my little suitcase, and I hear someone behind me. And it's this guy. He says, I wanted to hug you goodbye because you are there with your good energy, just smiling. And it made my weekend.
Yeah.
So sometimes we, as you say, like when we're feeling kind, we're just grateful. It happens by itself. We don't need to do anything.
Absolutely. I mean, like I was teaching in Cincinnati. I was telling Nathalie the story. We were sitting in a little restaurant eating, and there was a lady sitting a little bit on another table by herself. And one moment she looked, and then I smiled, and then I saw her looking again, I smiled again, and then she looked again and we smiled. And then later on she said, oh, thank you for being so kind, and just smiling at me. And just the smile, she said, that made my day. So again, it doesn't have to be difficult, but we have to find that inner smile, huh?
Yeah, and then ladies feed him chicken. In the markets. You have to be careful. We should put like a sign, don't feed the teacher. Because literally you turn your head around and there is a human feeding him or giving him presents.
Yesterday we were somewhere and this lady was ordering a bowl of chicken. I chatted to her, I think it was 2 seconds, and then she goes, do you want to taste my chicken? But this is also, is when we open, when we are not feeling threatened, right? When we open in an open spaciousness, without any attachment, no matter if they're male or female or whatever, young, old, whatever, then already it's very easy to interact.
Yeah.
So that openness really comes from our own mind. And therefore, I always say in a class, you said, how can we check for ourselves, how's our practice doing? Am I like this or am I like this? So...
Sorry, hold on for the people listening. Fist, very tight fist or very open hand?
Yeah, so... very tight fist, then your energy is not flowing. And if I have a tight fist, I cannot give anything. I can also not receive, right? So if I open my hand, and we do hands-on healing with our open hands, if I open my hand, I can receive and give at the same time. It's the same action. And this is so important, yes? And this is something you can check with you every single action we do. We're at the supermarket and you feel a bit like, and then you can ask yourself, am I closed fist or am I open hand?
Yeah.
At work, someone says something and you feel maybe a reaction coming up and like, oh, am I getting a closed fist or am I treating it with an open hand? Very different outcome.
Lovely, lovely. So my last question for you is a little bit, what is coming? So you went to Japan, you've been traveling a lot. Any plans that you would like to share? Any training so people can know where to go? Or any secret you would want to divulge? There are quite a few I still don't know.
It's my face cream.
That one I know.
It's in the bathroom. So I'm going home now.
It's
Claude Lee. Ooh, nice face cream. But I get how do you call it? Promotion money now. It is getting. So in the end of May, beginning of June, I'm teaching in Sardinia, Italy, and it's a retreat and a 3-day Shimpan class. So I do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the next week Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and in between, some people come for both of the classes, and some people just come for one. So, and then in between beach and nice food and eating. And then I've got quite a few classes in Holland. Later in the year, I'm also teaching in the UK, also a Shimpan class and a retreat in Cheltenham. And then in June, I'm planning another 7-day online event. So I'm working on that when I get back home. So that's in the planning.
Cool.
Yeah, I actually have this year a couple of private classes, what is nice. So where about 10 people invite me to teach a private class. So that's also nice. So doing those as well in between.
It's an exciting year. And then one of your books is being translated to Dutch.
Yeah, so The Way of Reiki is now out in French, and it's in end of May. It's coming out in Dutch. So
amazing. And when is the next book coming?
Yes, I think for that I need to sit in a little cabin somewhere on the beach in the south of France or something for a month or two.
Awesome. Frans, thank you so much for taking the time to catch up.
Thank you. Good to see you.
I love to catch up with you in the podcast here every year. And I do think it's important, again, if you're a Reiki teacher, train, perhaps get a different mentor, but stick also to the same teachings. Don't go all over the place. I know I have martial arts, I have a Shin Buddhist priest, and I have Frans, but they actually all point on the same direction. They all build on each other. It's very Japanese, very disciplined, very focused, very much about grounding, embodiment. So train and stick to teachings, go deeper, go deeper. That would be my message, because this is the 7th time I sit with you. I got from the meditation aspect, like so much like, I still get new and going deeper into the practice. So I think it's also, you still train, I still train. I think almost like we can train for life.
It's the rest of our life.
It's a great thing. Even if you think you know it all, then just reaffirm that, I knew it all. It's a lovely, also seeing the community is beautiful. So that would be my last message. Any final words for this interview?
Yes, I think what you say, community, I think this is also a thing. Like one thing I really like about traveling around the world and teaching is community, and I can see it so much. Like Nathalie, you catch up with Troy, with Helena, with Ifatayo, and there is this...
I love them. Hard.
So, but this is it. You've become friends, right? Yeah. And you don't necessarily have to see each other once a week, but maybe once a year or a few times a year. And then there is that support. And I think then we feel really that we're holding each other's hands. And I really see this in the way you and I teach. I think this is really a very important element for both of us, that creating community. Like some people get really caught up in... that there is competition. There is no competition. This is in our own state of mind. So I support Nathalie support me, and we support each other in teaching, in practicing, in students. I think, and that's the beauty of it.
I love that. And I won't add to that because it's perfect as it is. So thank you so much. I'm going to let you go to have more fun tonight. We just finished, and I got this poor man after 3 days of teaching. So thank you so much for this, and big kisses to everyone. I'll put the notes on the interview, on the podcast notes. You'll have all of it, and as usual, also you'll have his email, his contact info. You can reach out directly to Frans, or ask me any question about Frans, except very intimate ones. I'm not answering those.
She signed a contract.
Unless you pay me big money, and then I may. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.